Hello, everybody. Today's daf, Bez Hashem, is daf Kuv Vav 106. In Masechta Sanhedrin, we're getting closer to the end. Okay, we're going to start from Kuf Hey Amid Beis, just second line from the wide lines. Tana Mishmei Di Rabbi Meir. Okay, I'm going to make it big on the screen. Okay, we're discussing Bilam, and that's basically the first half of today's daf. And then tomorrow's daf is, and the second part will be talking about somebody called Doyek. So let's go. Tana Mishmei Di Rabbi Meir, we learned in the Rabbi Meir. We just learned yesterday that God gets angry for 1 second per day. And that is usually in the morning. Why? As soon as the sun comes up for sunrise, and the kings put their crowns on their heads, and they bow to the sun, that causes anger to God. God sees that even the leaders of the people are serving celestial bodies in the heaven. So now the Gemara continues with Avram, with the Bilam. When Bilam got permission to curse Klal Yisrael, he got up in the morning and saddled his donkey. Now Bilam is a very important person. So Tana Mishum Rab Shimon ben Elazar, we learned in the name of Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Ahava mevatel shura. Love disrupts protocol. Hi, Lewis. We just began. We're on Kuf Hey Amid Beis, about 3 lines from the wide lines. Ahava mevatelas shura gedayla. The love disrupts normal protocol. Why? We learned that from Avram Avinu. It says by Avram Avinu, "V'yashkim Avram Avoyker." Avram got up in the morning, and Avraham saddled his donkey. Sina mevatelesh shura shagedula. Hatred disrupts protocol. Bilam. And Bilam got up in the morning and he saddled his donkey. So we see that when you're doing something out of love, like Avram Avinu, or you're doing something out of complete hate, you're gonna disrupt normal protocol, which you're gonna have attendants helping you if you're a special person. And we see that everything is overridden when you're dealing with high emotions. Okay, hi, Sheldon. We just began. We're just on Kuf Hey Amid Beis. Okay, here we go. Okay, great. Amar Rav Yehuda. Amar Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav. La'olam means always. Yasek Adam b'Torah mitzvahs afilu shlo yishma. A person should be Isaac in Torah mitzvah, even if you don't feel it. You're not in the mood, or you don't feel spiritual about it. You can't get in touch with your soul. By starting off doing it not for that sake, eventually you will get more spiritual. You will come to do. You will do it on a higher level. Balak brought 42 sacrifices to God, but he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it as a spiritual exercise. And nevertheless, look what came out of Balak's lineage, progenitors. It was Rus, the grandmother of David HaMelech. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Huna said, Rus bitay shel Egloin. Rus is the daughter of Egloin, the king of Moab. Ben benoy shel Balak melech Moav haisa, who is a grandson of Balak. So Rus comes from Balak. Amar le Rava l'Rabba b'Mari. Rava said to Rabba b'Mari, Ksiv yetiv elihim Hashem. This is not this Gemara brings this as a open parentheses. It's really not relevant to what we learned before. But because we said something from Rabbi Yossi bar Huna, we're going to say another thing from Rabbi Yossi bar Choini. It's the same person. Amalei Rava l'Rab Mori. Ksiv, the pasuk says, "Yetiv elihim Hashem shloimeh mishmecha v'gadlas kisei mikisecha." They told David HaMelech that Shlomo is going to be greater than you, so let him be the king following your death. So, is that respectful to say to the king, "Oh, your son is going to be better than you"? Amalei. So Rab Mori said to Rava, "Me'ain kamarle." They didn't mean to say he's going to be better than you. He's going to be like you. If you're not going to say like that, Tevarach minoshim Yael Eishachei v'Akenim minoshim Lo'el Tevarach, that they blessed Yael, that she's greater than those women from the tent. Who are those women from the tent? Noshel ba'oil maninhu. Who are those women from the tent? Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Valeah. So you can say basically that Yael, even though she did a great thing in Shoftim, is greater than Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. Is that respectful to say such a thing? You mean she's like them? What they meant to say is that Shlomo HaMelech, his advisors, told David that Shlomo, not that he's going to be greater than you, he's going to be like a chip off the old block. But the truth is, this argues against Rabbi Yosef Bar Choni, that's how it gets in here. The Rabbi Yosef Bar Choni said, Bakoil Adam Miskaneh. Rabbi Yosef Bar Choni is of the opinion that Shlomo is greater than David. And yet, it's not disrespectful to say to someone that your son is going to be better than you, because this is a rule in life. Everybody, you're jealous of every person. Chutz, except mibnoi v'talmidoi. If you see your student or your son outdo you, you're not going to be jealous. Bnoi mishloimai. We see that David HaMelech is not jealous, that they told him that Shlomo is going to be a better king than you are. The Talmidoi, where do you see if your student is better than you, you're not jealous? They told Eliyahu, they told Eliyahu that your student Elisha is going to be greater than you. Moshe Rabbeinu put his both hands on Yeshua and really sort of made him better than him, so to speak. Now we get back to the story of Bilam. The pasuk says, "Vayosem daba b'fi Bilam." God put something in the mouth of Bilam, and therefore it's funny that Bilam, who tried in his mind to curse, the words came out were a blessing. Rabbi Lezer says a malach came to his mouth and stopped him from cursing. Rabbi Yonasan, it wasn't so an angel; it was chaka, a fish hook, and every time he tried to pronounce the words of a curse, it came out like a blessing. Amar Rabbi Yochanan taught, from the blessings of Bilam, the way he blessed us, we know what he really wanted to do, what was in his heart. For example, he wanted to say that there should be no more shuls and no more places of learning. And what happened? God made him say, how great is it to have Beis HaKnesses? He wanted to say, like Tishra Shechina Aleim, that the Jewish people should not have the presence of God amongst them. What happened? Yisrael. He ended up saying, your dwelling should be with Yisrael. He wanted to say that the Jews should not have a king that lasts, kings that last. So we said, like twisted brooks, like a nachal, just like a nachal never stops, a spring never stops. So also our kingdoms, the kings of the Jewish people, should never be interrupted. There should not be olives or grapevines in Israel. He blessed us that we should have nice things growing by the sides of the river. The smell of the Jewish people should not waft. That means from the Torah, from the mitzvahs, it should not spread. And that's not true. Ka'alam not Hashem. They should smell like aloe. They should never have a king that is good looking, who has height. He ended up, that's what he meant to say, but he ended up saying that we should have kings like cedar trees by the water. We should not have a king, the son of a king. The water pours out from the pitcher, that it's like one king will come from the other king. Their kingdom should not rule over the nations. Their children should rule over many waters. There should not be any courage or confidence in their kingdom. Their king should be exalted from Agag. They should not have any fear for their kings. Their kings should be lifted. Okay, basically what the Gemara just got through saying that if we examine all the blessings of Bilam, he blessed us, but really, he really wanted to say the opposite of what he actually said. But an angel came to his mouth and put the blessings into his mouth. The truth is that everything reverted back. None of these things came true. So Omar Abba Kahana Kulam Chazur Leklola, everything turned back into a curse. In other words, we never had kings that sometimes the kings were not the son of the previous king, and Israel was destroyed, and our kings lost their power. Wherever we go, despite that, there's always going to be a shul and a place of learning. God loved you, and He turned all the klala to the bracha. Klala v'lay klalas. Only one klala remained a blessing. The others, all the blessings, reverted back to curses. Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar Rab Yonasan. New Gemara. My diksiv. Why does the pasuk says Ne'amanim pitzei oyev? It's better to have the wound, the smack of a friend, but an enemy's kiss is so bothersome. What is that? What is that referring to? We find in Tanakh that Bilam blessed us, but he's an enemy. There was a Navi called Achia Hashiloni. You could look him up in Perplexity on AI to find out more about him. But basically, he was a very righteous prophet who foretold the splitting of the civil war and the Jewish people, where the 10 tribes will break away and move to the north. So he said, "Toiva klola shekila achia shiloni es Yisrael." It's better the curses that Achia Shiloni cursed the Jewish people, Yoser, were more powerful mibracha sheberchem Bilam Arasha, from the blessings that Bilam Arasha gave. For example, Achia Shiloni kila Yisrael bakona. He cursed the Jews that they should be like a reed. Shnema v'hika Hashem Yisrael kash yonen hakone b'mayim. Ma kane ze oimed b'mkoy mayim b'gizoy. We go to Amid Aleph. B'gizoy machle v'shraf shel merubim. That we should be like reeds, right? That he said that God should smite the Jewish people like you hit a reed that's in the water. Well, if you hit a reed that's in the water, even if it gets uprooted, it regrows back. And even if a lot of a wind goes, it doesn't. If a harsh wind blows, sometimes it doesn't move from its place. It just moves with the wind. And kivan shadam when the ruchai stop, so it's the reed stands by its place. In other words, it's not so bad to be a reed. So if He cursed you to be a reed, and God should smote you like God hits the reeds with harsh winds, that's okay. Avo bilam arasha berchem be'eres. He blessed us that we should be of cedar trees. If you learn Pasha's Balak, you could see Bilam said we should be like cedar trees. Oh, but that's not a good blessing. A cedar tree doesn't stand by water. Vishrashes miyotav, and doesn't have large roots. When you chop it down, it doesn't regrow back. True that if many winds blow at it, it never moves it from its place. But when the south wind blows, it gets uprooted, and falls on its place. So it's not good to be a cedar tree. It's better, not only that, it's probably better to be a reed. The reed was a good thing, because a reed was how we write Sefer Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksubim. In the time of the Gemara, that's how they used to write this Sefer Torah, using a reed instead of a feather. So it was that. So the curse from a friend is better than the blessing from an enemy. Bilam said, he saw the family of Cani, Bilam, and he was shocked. Cani is Yisroi. Why was Bilam shocked about Yisroi? Bilam said to the Yisroi, Cani was not with us when we devised Parai to kill the firstborn. So Cani ran. So why was Yisro's family merited to be in the Sanhedrin? Where does Yisro come to Paro? Shloisha Haya, Rabbi Kia said, Shloisha Haya Ba'isa. There were three advisors to Parai in that advice to kill the Jewish people, kill the firstborn. Eluhem, these are them: Bilam, Iyov, Yisro. Bilam gave the advice, kill the firstborn. Nerag, he got killed himself. Iyov Shishashak, Iyov that kept quiet, he seemed indifferent. So Nidam Bisurim, he was punished with suffering, and he felt what it's like to be on the other side. The Yisroi Shabarach, Yisroi ran away. For some reason, he didn't have the courage to tell Pare, don't do it, but he ran away. So his children merited, after Yisroi became a convert, his grandchildren became part of the Sanhedrin. Shenema, Mishpachos, besides from Yosha Yabitz Rasim Shemasayim Susachasim, Hey Makina Boy Machmas Avi Beis Av, these families became into the Sanhedrin. And Uksib Bnei Cheni Chosu Moshe Olam Ir HaTmarim came up from Ir HaTmarim. So these Kenim were the Bnei Keni, who was from the father of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they ended up sitting Yoshvei Yabitz to sit in the Sanhedrin. So when Yisro's family was merited to be part of the Sanhedrin. Rab Shimon ben Levi. Rab Shimon ben Levi says, wow. He says, woe, basically, Bilam was saying, woe is to a person that lives his life like he's the God, like he's so busy with living a materialistic life, which some people, even Jewish people, do that. So he says, "Oy mi yichya misu el," by putting himself as if he's a deity. You could look at Rashi over here. They basically don't realize that instead of wasting time on materialism, their responsibility is to learn Torah. Amar Rabbi Yechon said, woe will be to the nation that tries to interfere at the final redemption when God is about to redeem the Jewish people. Mi matel kesisai, who would try to interfere bein lavi v'levia, between a lion and a lioness, v'sharjes dakim zamzeh, when they are mating. It's a very dangerous time. So at that time, the love of God to Klal Yisrael will be at a heightened state, and therefore woe to the nation that tries to get in between. Then it says, V'tzim b'yad kitim, Amarav libin aspir, v'inu asher v'inu kever, ad asher kotlu miktal mekam, v'elech m'shabde shibude. So basically, Bilam was prophesizing that there will be a group of Romans coming up with ships from this place called Libin Aspir. That was a port in Rav's time. And what they were going to go is, till they get to Assyria, they'll be killing all the nations. And from then on, they're just going to put everybody to work. So he prophesies about the Romans. Now, we find the main thing about Bilam is not so much his curses, but one of the main things that he did was he advised the Mayavim how to deal with the Jewish people to seduce them into sin. So Bilam said on his way out, he says to the Sari Moav, let me give you advice what these people, the Jewish people, are going to do to your people. So the Gemara asks, he should have said the opposite. Your people, I'm giving you advice what your people should do to their people. It's like somebody who curses somebody else, and he curses himself, but he says, let them do it. In other words, his advice was so out of the box at that time that he didn't want to say that you're gonna do it to them. So he said they're going to do it to you. But really he meant that the Moavim should take his advice and do the following to the Jewish people. Amalehem. So this is what the advice was. Let's read it inside. Bilam said, Elehayim shel Elu, the Jewish people's God, hates adultery. And Jewish people have a fetish with silk clothing, okay? So he said to the Moabim, let me give you advice. Asay lehem kloim, make tents. V'aishiv lehem zoynus, and put two zoynus, harlots, in there. Zekena, an old zayna, mibachut, should be on the outside. V'yalda mibifnim, and a young one from the inside. So a person's not so attracted to the old one. V'yinkru lehem pei klei pishtron, and they should be selling linen clothing. Asa lehem kloim mahar sheleg ad beis hayshuvah. So the Moabim followed the advice and made tents from Har Shelik to Beis HaYeshumus. They made tents. They followed exactly so they made like a marketplace. Okay, so imagine all these tents are a marketplace selling linen clothing, which the Jewish people had a fetish for. When the Jews would eat and drink and be happy, and they would take a walk on the marketplace, so the old Zoyna would say, aren't you looking for silk clothing? The old woman would say, I'll sell it to you for exact price, what it's worth. The Yalda Oimeres, but the young one inside the store, they say, Oimeres lebepachas, I'm going to sell it to you less. And this happened 2 or 3 times, that the guy got called into the store by the young woman to buy clothing on the cheap. So he was, and then he continued to go to the same store. The young Zaina would tell the Jewish guy, you're an old customer here. You pick your own, whatever you want, you can keep it. But there's a jug of wine right next to the clothing rack. And it says the Gemara in parentheses. At that time, they did not ask for a Jew to drink the plain wine of a guy. Yain stam. She said, I want you, do you want to drink a cup of wine? So politely, the Jew said, I'll drink a cup of wine. As soon as he drank a cup of wine, says the Gemara, Baraboy, his Yetzer Hara burned inside of him, and he had a real desire to do znus. Amallah, he wasn't shy about it. The Jew said to the girl, Hashmili, let's do znus. At that time, she took a little idol from her lap. Amrlai, she said, Avoid lazah, I want you to serve this. Amalai, so he told her, Hala Yehudiani, I'm a Jew, I can't serve an idol. Amalai, she said, what are you bothered by that? All I ask you to do is defecate for the idol. And she was adamant about it. I'm never going to leave you alone until you deny in the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. So, and the reading of this pasuk is, they came to Baal Pa'ar, they separated themselves to the shameful item, and they became detestable like that which they loved. In other words, the Jews ended up serving that idol by defecating to the idol, and then doing znus, cohabitating with the Zaina for Moav. Says the pasuk, Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim. The Jews settled in this place called Shittim, and this was the place where they did the znus with the Moavim. Says the Gemara, Rab Lezer Omer Shittim Shma. The name of the place was called Shittim. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Shnisasku b'Devrei Shtus. They got busy with nonsense. When you're busy with nonsense, then your mind thinks about adultery. The pasuk describes the Moabit woman invited the people to have a party with Rab Lezer Omer Arumis Palgabehem. There were unclothed women by these parties. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Shnase Kulam Balkeri. But Tikrenu means they all became like a Balkeri. They spilled the seed. Now the Gemara says put in parentheses. We see Mailash Rafidim. We find that the Jews came to a place called Rafidim. So Rabbi Lezer always says, take it literally, Rafidim Shmama. The name of the place is Rafidim. Just like Shittim Shma, Rafidim is also Rafidim. I'm sure I'm a Sheripi Atzma Divrei Torah, Shnama, Lehifna Oves Albonim, Mirifni Yadayim. The fathers did not pay attention to the kids because they were weak, hands were weakened. In other words, Refidim is not really a place, it's just a nickname to a place where the Jews lightened up on their responsibility of learning Torah. Now the Gemara continues. Rabbi Yochanan taught, wherever the Torah says Vayeshev, it means that something bad is about to happen. Shinema Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim v'Yochalam Liznos b'Nai Moav. So in Shittim they started to do znus. Or we're familiar with the parsha Vayeshev. Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz Megurei Ava be'eretz Canaan. Yavi Yarses Dibir Sam Ra Elavichem. Once Yaakov settled, then all of a sudden something bad. We're never supposed to settle. Where it says the Jews settled in Goshen, then Yaakov died. And then in Tanakh also, in the time of Shlomo Melech, and then it says, so wherever you see the expression Vayeshev Yisrael, the Jews settled, something bad is about to happen. Then the Gemara Pasuk continues. As Bilam Bebar Hogo Becharav. Bilam Bebar was killed with a sword, and he was killed in Saudi Arabia. Now, Bilam Bebar came from Aram Narayan. What's he doing by Midyan? Bilam my boy Hassam. What's Bilam doing in Midyan? He lives in another place. Rabbi Yochanan taught. Bilam's advice with his nus caused 24,000 Jews to lose their lives. So he came to take his reward from the Midian people. That's what people say. A camel who doesn't have horns, he went to ask to try to get horns, to get horns. And what happens when you ask too much? The ears that he had, and they cut it off for him. So here, Bilam should have, stayed by his place, and that's it. But instead, he tried to overreach, and when he overreached, he himself got killed because in Midian was the place where the Jews caught up to him and killed him. There's Bilam ben Ba'ar HaKoisim. They call him the Bilam ben Ba'ar, the sorcerer. Koisim Navihu. What do you call him? A magician. He was actual prophet. God spoke to Bilam. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, B'tchila Navi. He started off good as a Navi. Ulsayv Koisim. In the end, he became a sorcerer. Amar Papa says, that's an expression. The woman was descended from princes and rulers, and Aizin Legavre Nagare, but was licentious with carpenters. In other words, she comes from a good place, but she ended up lowering herself, degrading herself, and that's Bilam. First he was a Navi, and then he became just a lowly magician. We go to Kuf Vav Mebeis. We'll stop in 5 minutes. Hogu b'nei Yisrael b'kar v'schalaleim. Amarav Shekima by Arba Misas Skila Sreifa Haravichanek. That Bilam got 4 misas. Somehow they hung him and they burned him and they chopped his head off and they stoned him. So they just didn't kill him with a sword, but they tried to meet out with him in practice. At least you could kill somebody just once, but they tried to give him the 4 misas bezdin. Says the Gemara, Amalehu minu Rab Chanina. This Christian said to Rab Chanina, did you hear how old Bilam was? According to the Gemara previously that we learned, Bilam was in the time of Paroi, which makes him an old man. But this Gemara seems to argue. How old was Bilam when he died? Amalei, so Rab Chanina answered the Christian, Michtav like Siv. It doesn't say in the Torah, Elamidik Siv, the Pasuk says in Tehillim, Anshe Dama Mirmar Yal people with blood on their hands and tricky people don't live half their lives. So normal person lives 70 years. So if you live half, you live below. If you don't even make it to half, you either 34 or 33 years. So I'm going to guess that Bilam was Bar Tlosun Tlas, lived to 33 years old, or Bar Tlosun Arba, or 34 years old. So Amalei, so the Christian said to Rab Chanina, Shapikam, you said very well. The Didi Chazalei Pinka said to Bilam, I saw a stele maybe that referenced Bilam's name, and it was written there, Bat listen to Tlashan and Bilam. Bilam was 33 years old. Chagira, Katkata Yoti Pinchas Listai. When Pinchas killed this limping Bilam, he was 33 years old. So you're right. Even figuring out from the Tehillim, you figured out that the exact age of Bilam. Amalei Ma'ad Bei Ravina concludes the Gemara. Bekula Leitapish Lemidrash. Don't expound on them, how bad they were. All the people mentioned, all those kings and commoners that were mentioned, don't don't expound how bad they were. The Baal Bilam Rasha, except Bilam Rasha. The Kama the Mishkachet Bey, as much as you could expound on how bad he was, Dreish Bey, you should expound on it, because he was always worse than what you think he was. Again, when you read the Bible, the Chumash, you don't really perceive them as such evil people. And the Gemara tells you that you got to read, and darshan the psukim, like the Chazal darshan it, and then you'll see much more what they were all about. Okay, we're going to another topic over here. We'll start it for the next 3 minutes, then we'll stop. There was a person called Doeg Adaimi. I'm going to send it out. Just something. You should look it up. Well, who Doeg Adaimi was. But Doeg was the one that was a herdsman for Shaul HaMelech, and he was jealous that David was anointed or seemed to have, grow into the cabinet of Shaul HaMelech, so to speak. So once when Shaul was trying to chase David HaMelech, David, he was starving, and he ended up in the city of Nov. And the city of Nov, the Kahanim gave David bread to eat from the lechem upon him, and they gave him Goliath's sword. Shaul told David about Doeg saw the whole thing and told Shaul HaMelech all about what the people of Nov did. And the pasuk says that Shaul came and killed 86 Kahanim from Nov Ira Kahanim and killed out the rest of the city. So it was because of Doeg, this Lashon Hara person, that caused the death of many, many, many Kahanim and a gorgeous city called Nov. So Ksiv Doeg, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, B'tchila Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'Doeg Shem Yetzei L'Tabas Ra. God was very concerned. Doeg was a talented person. He was a smart person. He learned the best. And God was afraid he was going to fall into bad cultures. And then God, doesn't intervene. He had free choice, and he chose to go the wrong way. And so God was worried about him, and it proved to be, he proved to go off the way. And again, Doeg lost his Olam Haba. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Ma'diksiv, Matis Hala Bara Giba Chesek El Kol Hayoyim. Amalei Kadosh Baruch Hu Doeg, God says to Doeg, Lo Giba B'Torah Ata Matis Hala Bara. Aren't you strong in Torah? Why are you praising yourself to do bad? Lo Chesed El Noter Lecha Kol Hayoyim. The Torah's chesed, the learning of Torah, which brings kindness to the world, that's what's on your mind the whole day. In other words, the Gemara is having a trouble. Again, this theme appears often, but mostly by Doeg. He's the greatest of the greatest in Torah, and yet he debased himself. So it's very hard to understand, and caused through his lashon hara, through his actions, death. V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak. We'll stop in 2 more minutes. 1 more minute. Rabbi Yitzchak said, the pasuk says, V'la Rasha, to a Rasha, God says, what are you learning Torah for? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Doeg, the evil one, why are you learning my Torah? When you're going to learn the parsha of Lashon Hara, what are you going to say? You speak yourself Lashon Hara. When you speak about killing, you yourself are guilty of killing people. Says the pasuk, and with this we'll stop. Batisa brise alei picha. So the Gemara answers this with one line, that he carried the Torah on his mouth. Amar Abami ein Torasa shel Doeg elam safa l'chutz. The Torah of Doeg was only lip service. He knew how to say over the Torah. It was in his brain, but not in his heart. And since he never was emotional about his learning, so when it came down to it, he took the decisions against what the Torah would advise him, which ultimately led to the death of many, many special people. Again, when you learn, you always say, Psach libi b'soresecha. My heart should be really into it. Okay, we're going to continue about Doeg. I'm going to send something out, little biography about Doeg, and we'll continue with him tomorrow. Bez Hashem.